All right, welcome back to another episode of Travel Ball Talk. I'm your host, Rich Prado, owner of Play in School. Today we're heading down to Franklin, Tennessee. That's the Nashville, Tennessee suburbs to meet with Glen Johnson. Glen is owner, GM of HoJo Baseball. Glen, how you doing, man?
Rich, good man. How are you? Thanks for having me.
You got it, man. I'm excited to talk to you. Interested to learn about HoJo Baseball and Showtime Sports Academy, the facility side of y'all's business. HoJo. That's a weird name, man. HoJo is a weird name. Where's that name come from, Glenn?
Well, it comes from my father, Howard Johnson. He used to play for the Mets for a number of years, along with the Tigers, Rockies, and the Cubs, and so that's kind of been his nickname from the beginning. So,
I love it, man.
Definitely, if he's listening in, you've offended him that you're calling his nickname weird.
No, man, I had to pull that out of you. I had to pull, So I grew up a Mets fan. I was born in North Jersey. Moved to Virginia before I was one, but always rooted for New York sports teams. And on the baseball side, it was the Mets, and it was funny. I have to share this bad dad joke with the listeners. When you texted yesterday and was like, "Hey, do you want my dad on there?" And my reply was like cold pan, like, "Who's your dad?" Like, obviously, I already knew. Like, oh, I know. But as I told you, he's had enough of the spotlight. We're going to put the spotlight on you today, and learn a little bit about HoJo Baseball. For anybody who's living under a rock, though, Howard Johnson, not associated with the hotel chain, was a pretty good big league player. He's on a pretty short list of all-time 30-30 guys in the history of Major League Baseball. I think there's less than 50 30-30, 30 home runs, 30 steals in a season. And if a little quick Googling served me correctly, I think he did it 3 times.
He did. Yep.
Which is an incredible feat, and it's like it's such an unusual thing. It's if people, I guess, nobody aims for that. I don't think. Do you think people aim for that sort of statistical category, or is it something that's so hard that like you can't aim for it?
It's just it's kind of one of those things where it's that rare combination of speed and power. Usually if you kind of have one or the other, it typically draws sometimes away from the other. Just given if you have a lot of power and usually a little bit bigger, so it kind of takes away a little from the speed factor, and then vice versa. If you're kind of more of a speedster, able to swipe a lot of bags, then typically a little bit more of a smaller guy or a thinner guy but is extremely athletic and is able to totally be more on the strength of that side. So, but that rare combination of speed and power, that's kind of why you see that list, is not very big, and especially for guy hit, with him and his air and everything too, just, doing it 3 different times. I believe, I'm not sure if it still stands or not, but I think Bobby Bonds is like the only one that had it more times in his career, and it was 5. And also, I don't have, a computer in front of me to kind of search all that, but I definitely know that for the longest time that was true. I'm sure some other guys have, caught up, especially when you get guys like, the Ronald Acuna Juniors of the world. That those guys, they're freak athletes. They're unbelievable to watch, and where they kind of can do it all, right? The speed, the power, a little bit of everything. So the
home runs obviously not going anywhere. The stolen base is the part that has become in recent years a forgotten tool. Although with some rule changes in the last couple of years at the major league level, I think we're seeing perhaps a resurgence of the stolen base. So it would be interesting to see what happens with that.
True.
But,
yeah. That's fair.
Let me ask you. So I point out sort of a very obvious, statistical category. Is there anything about your dad's playing days, from either an on-field or off-field, that, maybe either he brings up something that maybe like the average Mets fan wouldn't know that he's proud of, that's a feather in his cap, something that you guys talk about, that's maybe less publicized than a 30 for 30?
I know while he was playing, and even to this day, and like even with our place of business here with Showtime Sports Academy and HoJo Baseball, I mean, we don't shy away from our faith in Christ. So we're Christians. My father and I, my whole family, and we've never shied away from that. And obviously, living that life has its challenges. Sometimes in the public eye, but also life has its challenges, but it's being able to navigate through that stuff with the Lord that we serve. It just makes life worthwhile that much more, to where we wouldn't be where we are today if it weren't for him, for Christ. And so I would say that a lot of people knew that of him when he played. And again, that's something that we don't shy away from, and people know us down here, whether it be through Showtime Sports Academy or same with the HoJo baseball program. So,
well, honestly, I probably didn't know that, but it's almost the perfect segue. He was playing in New York City in one of the biggest party eras in the history of New York City, alongside of teammates who were notorious party animals. Guys like Darryl Strawberry, guys like Dwight Gooden. The list is probably a mile long.
Yeah.
Had he already call it found the church before he was in New York, or not to say he was right there elbow to elbow with these guys, or was it something? So let me rephrase. Was he sort of head down when he was in New York, or did finding the church come after New York? Because man, if that 1980s New York City doesn't lead you to the church, I don't know what does. Because things were things were crazy back then.
No, it was before all that. When he found Christ, I believe even before, with the Tigers and everything like that, where he was walking with the Lord, and obviously, during that time, I mean, that group was a strong group together. That team, again, I obviously wasn't on that team by any means, but just the stories that I heard, just like. That group was a very tight-knit group. They went to war for each other. They love each other. Yeah, they partied with each other for sure too. My dad kind of kept. I always asked him. I was like, where were you at, and kind of all that stuff. And he laid low. He wasn't really necessarily like in that crowd by any means, but he loved those guys all the same. Just like the other guys that kind of wouldn't go out, but. It's something to admire every time, like whenever the Mets do, whether it be, obviously the Hall of Fame inauguration that they did this past summer for my father, but to see some of the Mets of old, and then even to some of the throwback games that they've done before, just kind of honoring those guys. It's really neat to watch just the brotherhood that they to this day still have and admire. So it's really neat to see, that obviously they've gone through a lot together with each other during their playing days, and even after their playing days, they all like just love seeing each other. And that's kind of been just an amazing sight to see in the journey that they all have taken. So,
well, when I made reference to that sort of party scene of New York City sort of leading you to the church, the number one example you can look at is Darryl Strawberry. And I grew up a Darryl Strawberry fan, and which my father was like, do you think you could find a different role model? Not as a 10-year-old kid, I didn't quite realize what he was talking about. But I just can't even imagine how many years got taken off of his career and how many home runs were taken off of his career in no directly related to his extracurricular off the field endeavors. And it's just a shame to think about, because the kids today, I mean, they don't know how electric his swing was, and on the other side of the ball, how electric Doc Gooden's arm was. And you just think about, and obviously you fast forward to now, and Darryl Strawberry, last I heard, is a preacher, and I'm like,
yes,
man, hadn't you found the church in 1982, you would. He would have hit 700 home runs.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, I think he ended with like three something, and one of the quickest to 300, if my memory serves me correctly. But but good on your dad, that's cool. Well, let's talk about your background a little bit. You grew up in Florida. So take us back to Florida. You don't have to give us all the T-ball stats, but get us back to, say, maybe your high school days, where you did high school, and then the quick version to to where Showtime and HoJo baseball came into play.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, my path is pretty simple. After playing high school baseball at South Fork High School, I was a 4-year varsity starter there. I did get drafted out of high school, but then went on to play college baseball at Jacksonville University. Played there for 3 years. Transferred to Pace University in New York for my senior year, and then picked up just an independent ball contract for a few years. Played independent ball for 3 years. Enjoyed it. So I got paid to play a little bit and everything. But really, it was an interesting and a good path for me to where then after that, kind of finished up, retired, and finished up some schooling. And then before you know it, after, a little bit of just some of the corporate world and jobs there for a few years, my father and I always kind of had this dream of, owning and running our own indoor sports facility. We had done travel ball a little bit too. Down in Florida, we did for 1 year, the HoJo baseball program. And then when we moved up to Nashville, Tennessee, that kind of got put on hold and actually at that time was when I was finishing my degree. But yeah, I mean, we always kind of had this dream to do it together. Him and I's relationship has always been strong, and we have a passion for baseball, obviously. And then, just for trying to help kids get better. And before an opportunity came up to own Showtime Sports Academy in Franklin, Tennessee, and we took upon that endeavor, and I've kind of put our stamp on it ever since. We took ownership of that in 2017. And, just kind of been, where we're at today now with it. It's a great place to go and to get your training in, to meet good people, whether it be you want to do some lessons or just kind of doing some general rentals, anything like that. I mean, we even do birthday parties where we want it to be a central hub where people can enjoy, playing sport.
So Showtime was already in existence, and you guys essentially took over ownership of it.
It was, yeah,
about 5 years ago.
It's been around.
More than that.
Yeah, it's coming up on 7 years.
2017. Yeah.
Yeah, so 7 years. Gosh, it's flown by. It really has. I mean,
so this was an established facility, and then you bring the HoJo brand to it. Probably injected some life into it, right?
Yeah, we definitely, like I said, put our stamp on it, and then kind of brought the HoJo baseball program back up and kind of within, and it's kind of just project some new life into it. Showtime's been around prior to us. I don't know, if I had to guess, maybe 8 plus, maybe 10 years prior to us. Again, I don't know the history of its, success, of its successes or failures by any means. But I just kind of know that, we wanted to put our stamp on it when the opportunity came to taking it over, and we've done just that, and we've really enjoyed it. We've put together a good team, got a lot of great people that work there, that really we're proud of, and really blessed to be able to work alongside.
I was just thinking about, before we hit record, you and I were talking about, just the business aspect of this baseball thing and entrepreneurial spirit. And, presumably we probably have some guys listening to this who, they think the same way we do. And hey, starting your own thing is cool, but you know what? Sometimes buying something that's already working, it's like a cheat code, right? So instead of building something from the ground up with no proven success, no customers, you go in, you buy this thing, and now if you can pull a couple levers, you can tweak a couple little things, you can inject some life into it, inject the brand on the team side. Man, that's a fast forward. Like, you guys could have opened up your own shop with a different name, put your shingle out there,
sure.
But you don't know. You have no idea if it's going to work, right? So those guys out there, man, keep your eyes open. I hear all the same stories everybody else does if you're watching YouTube, and we got this boomer generation that's aging, and there's a lot of businesses out there owned by some guy who's 58, he's 62, he's not wanting to throw BP or hit fungos anymore. There's somebody out there right now who probably knows somebody like that. You could get into a business, an existing business that's been running, that has its own clientele, and just take over the lease, man. Take over that business and run that, and now you've got it's like a cheat code. It's like, hey man, here you are. Let's start on second base instead of at home plate.
Yeah.
Cool for y'all to be able to do that and take over. Whoever the guy that started that, kudos to you, man, and good on you and your dad for keeping that open and bringing some life to it.
Yeah.
So
appreciate
so HoJo so travel ball was getting going. It was becoming a thing when you graduated from high school in 07. And you mentioned y'all had done some travel ball stuff back in Florida. Was that with you as a player? Did you have a HoJo baseball travel team that you were on as a player, or was that later?
No, it was later. So when I was in independent ball, going into actually what would end up being my final year, we were still living in Florida, and going into my final year of pro ball during the off season, I would do lessons and whatnot. But as part of that dream, of kind of building a program, doing an indoor facility and all that stuff, we talked about how wanting to maybe start, a travel baseball program, would be beneficial. Like that we wanted to, coach these kids, and, kind of a way of giving back to the community. Because actually before that, probably for the previous 2 years before that, I actually would volunteer at the local rec ball, the Little League in my town. I knew of some of the dads that just were friends with, and I would even kind of do some lessons with some of their sons, and I wanted to help out. I really enjoyed coaching and teaching these players, and there's an eagerness to learn, and then it just kind of ended up falling into place where we ended up starting one team. It was 13U. We just did one team, and it was my father and I that were the coaches of it. We had a blast. We really did.
That's awesome.
So we did it for that fall, and we did it for that spring. And then lo and behold, he went off to coaching, I went off to play, and then and before you know it, we ended up moving actually up here to Nashville, just due to some of our family that moved up here prior. And so we just kind of followed suit. You know, life kind of brought us up here, and then all that kind of stuff was put on hold, unfortunately. But it really ended up being such a great path, because then, you know, Showtime Sports Academy, you know, kind of became a thing, and then before you know it, a year later, after we took ownership of Showtime Sports Academy, then we kind of talked about it and restarted the HoJo baseball program, and we're like, you know what, let's do this, you know. So
yeah, perfect. And so you resurrect the HoJo baseball brand, and fast forward, how many teams are you running out of there now?
So we've got 16 teams now, ranging from 7 years old to 17. So we've got at least one team in every age group. Most of the younger age groups, we have two. And then we kind of get a little bit more hyper-focused at some of those older age groups, with where we have one. At 13U, we have two. But once you get to 14 and above, we have one of each. And yeah, we've been enjoying it. We've been growing. I mean, we started with one team in the fall of 2018. That's when we, even though we owned the facility in 2017, we didn't start the HoJo baseball program until 2018, that fall, I believe. And then, and yeah, just since then, it's kind of been kind of what it's done. You know, we've, you know, poured attention into that a lot and trying to grow that, you know, again, because we just found it as another way, an extension of what we do at Showtime, you know, just a way of serving the community, trying to, you know, help players continue to grow and develop, you know, and try to provide good coaching. So.
The state of Tennessee is very good at baseball. I mean, look at the college ranks, and right there in your backyard with Vandy.
Yeah.
What is the
even the Little League World Series?
Good
our boys
call.
have gone far for a number of years now, and so you're right. Yeah, I mean, baseball is very big here.
What? So tell me about the local scene, maybe with the little guys, and all the way up through. You know, for example, our most recent guest was from the Minnesota Icemen. That ain't Nashville, Tennessee, right? So they got to go looking. I mean, there's some good clubs up there, but it ain't Nashville. Yeah. You know, you don't have the you're not in SEC country when you're up in Minnesota. You're in SEC country. So just like talk about the advantages of, you know, geographically that you have, and what do you see when you're going down the road 5 minutes to square off against, you know, the other guy that's right there in town?
Yeah, I mean, you know, baseball is big here, travel ball in particular. You know, it's very competitive. There's a lot. I think, you know, Nashville in general as a whole, it's such a destination now at this point. You know, a lot of people are moving here and this and that. So you're getting, you know, a lot of former pro guys, current pro guys, college guys, all that stuff. You know, they're kind of planting a lot of their roots here. So there's a wealth of knowledge, you know, that is available in the area as well, which I think, you know, kind of just adds to the overall competitiveness that, you know, that the travel baseball world here brings, you know, where you see that, like you've alluded to with, you know, Vanderbilt, you know, Tennessee, you got, you know, a lot of good colleges here. And then you got, you know, our little leagues and everything, and same, you know, that do a really good job, you know, with the Little League World Series, and, you know, our high schools around in the area too. So it's a very strong, you know, even given that the weather can fluctuate here, you know, where we have, you know, a little brief winter here, obviously nothing like, you know, Minnesota would experience, the Icemen, in that group, what they would experience, obviously, we're not as severe weather-wise as they would be, but, we get, for the weather fluctuation, all the stuff that we do still experience here, baseball's very big and it's very competitive, and everything. And I'm saying that too, because I grew up in Florida and everybody kind of knows how Florida goes just because you can play year round there and it's extremely competitive down there. So with what Tennessee does too, given with some hurdles from a weather standpoint that does have to get through. It's very impressive in the area. So
I tell you what though, if you start adding up championship rings and you got colleges in Tennessee in recent history may outweigh Florida programs. Don't forget about my friend Billy Berry down there at Tennessee Wesleyan. I think he's got some hardware, doesn't he? Pretty sure he does. That's cool. You guys, the state of Tennessee is definitely chock full of talent as well. All right, so let me ask you. This has come up a couple times recently.
Okay.
Softball. Are y'all dipping your toe in the softball world yet?
We kind of have in the past a little bit, and I had at the time, a really great director of the softball program. Her name was Callie. She was actually one of my initial assistant GMs at Showtime Sports Academy too. She's basically like a sister to our family. So we love her to death. She moved back home a few years after being with us. Kind of missed home up in actually, ironically, Minnesota, since you just mentioned Minnesota. That's where she's from. And so she started the Showtime softball program from the ground up, and it was very successful. We had, I want to say, after we started with one team, a couple years later, I think we got up to maybe 6 teams. I don't think we reached 8, but it was like 6 or 7 teams and, working really well. We also were simultaneously running the HoJo baseball program. So unfortunately couldn't really, it started to slowly taper off a little bit, just since I couldn't find as much of a replacement, but softball is still a very big, sport in our area. It's extremely large, in the Middle Tennessee area. So you've got other programs that are out there. But yeah, we have dipped our toe in the past with as far as the travel softball part of it. Now we service softball all the time. We love softball. My father's done stuff down in Florida with the Gators in the past, with Tim Walton. So like we've always had a special heart for softball. My daughter has played in the past. She played this past year and enjoyed it really well. And
how old is she?
So she's only 6 years old, so it's
here we go.
Very young side. It was fun. So
I'm telling you, HoJo softball is going to become, and this is what I'm noticing. It feels like there is the potential for many of these traditional travel baseball organizations to make a serious run at the softball world, because I keep running into guys who have daughters, and like one of our recent guests with Greg Blazing with Rhino Baseball out of the Chicago area. And, they've got like 6 or 7 teams now. I'm like, let me guess, you have a daughter? He's like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, that's how it works. Like, that's how it works. But like my sort of prediction stems from not so much the team side of it. Like, there's plenty of teams out there, but from the training side of it, right? Like, imagine HoJo running practice for 50 softball girls. Like, that's how you go from the average softball program in Middle Tennessee to having one of the best programs in Middle Tennessee. Is like a year under his belt. Oh, it's it's like your improvement will hockey stick. Your skill level will
Yeah.
hockey stick. So anyway, I keep noticing the softball thing popping up in conversation, and I it's like I hadn't asked you if you have kids, and so now you mentioned you have a daughter. Look for HoJo.
I've got three. I've got my oldest is my daughter, and I got two sons after that.
HoJo softball coming in 2 years. We got a couple years to prep for it. Yeah, it's coming. It's coming, whether you want it to or not. It's really actually not even your choice. It's going to be up to her.
That's true. It's up to her.
Is she going to lean more like cheerleading and dance,
softball,
or is she?
So.
Oh gosh, you're screwed. Yeah.
So,
I was going to say,
but my wife's the dancer, gymnastics, and everything, and so
okay.
My daughter loves to dance too. She loves to dance, and so she's really good at it. She enjoys that. She enjoys gymnastics and jazz, ballet. She enjoys a lot of that stuff. So we'll see. We'll see what kind of we'll see what she gravitates to. But yeah, if it is softball, if that's what she chooses, then yeah, I'm probably in for it. You're right. So.
Totally. Let's knock off some of these what I kind of call my standards, because I always find interest in going through these with each guest, because it always leads in different directions, which is the fun part. It's not the same repetitive answers. So the first one's sort of a little bit of a layup. But honestly, it always has a tendency to surprise me. So is there a book or movie, website, or any resource really that you find yourself sharing, and maybe with a player, it might be with a parent, might be with a coach, just whatever, a Twitter site? What is it you find yourself sharing with people?
Honestly, I don't have like specifically with all that. I am a big fan of like just basically going on YouTube and just pulling up videos of some hitters. Like I'll send some of those like things to players or parents or what have you. Like
can you remember a certain channel? Is it? I mean, obviously,
not really
like
a channel. I'll kind of search some of the players. So like a lot of guys that like your Ronald Acuna Jr.'s, your Mookie Betts' of the world, like Yordan Alvarez. Just kind of searching those guys on YouTube and pulling up some footage of them in game, watching them hit, and just kind of showing that. Like you can learn a lot just from observing and watching. These guys that are the best of the best. And so that's kind of one of the things that I'm really fond of, because honestly, if you search things, you're going to find so many different resources out there, right? So many different, voices of opinion. And honestly, there's most of them are good. They're very good, and certain things work for you, certain things don't. But, I'm really just a big fan of kind of watching Major League Baseball and just kind of seeing those guys firsthand, what they do. And you kind of, you can even draw sometimes your own conclusions, but a lot of those videos that you can pull up, some hitters or some people, they'll kind of do a breakdown even for you. So I think that stuff's great. It's a good resource.
It's amazing that you can just like, we live in the future in 2024. You can just hop on this little box, type in somebody's name, and it shows you a video of, the video breakdown. Meanwhile, in 1986, I had to wait for This Week in Baseball Twib notes to pop on the TV, which you almost never knew when it was coming. And it's like it's such a different world that like these kids just have access to it at their fingertips.
Absolutely.
You might.
I mean, when I was in high school, I had something similar. Like I had these VHSs, and then even like when I got to college, transitioned some of them into DVDs. But actually, they were like highlight films of my dad when he played. So there's like these 2 or 3 videos, these clips that I basically kind of watch, over and over, and kind of study. I'd talk to him about it, and he'd show me. Or even when I was off at college playing ball, I would just kind of play it and kind of like, slow down, some of the footage, pause it, whatever I needed to do, and just kind of watch some of the things that he did, and just try to learn from it as best I could and implement it myself. So it was, like it's not like it is today where, it's like an app on your phone and you just pull it up and all that kind of stuff. So it's a little different.
I often will say a swing is like DNA. Like for me, like my swing from middle school looked like my swing from high school, looked like my swing from college. For you talking about this DNA, right? Like your dad's swing was your dad's swing. Did that get passed down to you through DNA? Like, did your swing look like your dad's?
There's definitely some similarities. We had, like every hitter, honestly goes through, stages, throughout their lifetime, throughout their career. They kind of experiment and try different things, different styles, or how they might want to feel something different. So they want to move their hands in a certain way, or even like maybe they widen up their stance or they narrow it. So all that stuff, kind of ends up fluctuating, and then you settle in, to something that you're a little more consistent with as you continue to get older and understand some of the fundamentals. But, it really, there were a lot of similarities, like my style, like where my hands were and kind of how they moved, at times could be similar, and then, some differences there as well. But, there's definitely, I've had comments of people when they saw some footage of like when I played, be like, man, your swing looks a lot like when your dad played. And I was like, oh, thanks. Like I always took it as a compliment, because I was accomplished something. So
he did it at a high level for a long time. You probably swing a little bit like your dad and a little bit like your mom, because you have her DNA too. Let's go on. Is there what regret or failure changed the way you coach for the better? Is there anything, any stories, any incidences, anything that sticks out in your mind that, that helped you improve as a coach? Something that was maybe a negative that eventually has become a positive in the long run?
Yeah. I know what you're asking. Definitely. So no regrets, not at all. Everything, you kind of focus on that side of it, then that's all you're going to focus on is like, woulda, coulda, shoulda. And that's just not the way, life works. Like you learn from your experiences. And honestly, when we're talking baseball, you're talking about a game that is built around failure. And the sooner that you kind of can embrace that and understand that, the sooner you can learn from it and improve and get better. So
this is the difference. This is the difference between a kid who grows up in that environment. Because what I often hear, you hear from the regular guy whose dad wasn't, an all-star infielder. They will often over-index the wins and losses early in their career. Yeah. And then at some point transition to let's over-index on the relationship piece of it or something. So it's such a difference when, like, they won the World Series, but they also lost a lot of games too, right? So like, like you as a child are experiencing that the same, right? Like he's coming home from work and going through that. So it's I wanted to highlight that for anybody who didn't pick up on that, because it's so obvious. It's such an obvious difference between your answer and almost everybody else's answer on that question.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that.
We talked about this a little bit already because you didn't open the Showtime facility from scratch. It existed, but you guys did start the HoJo brand. Is there one piece of advice you would give somebody that's just starting a travel team or a facility?
Yeah, I would say probably the biggest thing is, like, who's your team going to be? You know, like, even when you're playing, right, when you're on a team and performing, like, you know, you can have, you know, all the talent in the world and this and that, but if it's not a team, if it's not going to gel, then it's just not going to work, you know? It ends up kind of getting fractured at somewhere along the lines. But, you know, it's establishing a good team. And that's one thing that we pride ourselves on. That was one of the main goals when we first started too, you know, is kind of surrounding ourselves around good people that have a passion, you know, obviously for baseball or for softball, and just kind of really a passion for serving these kids, whether it be through private lessons or just customer service, trying to help them, you know, back to their cages for a rental, or, you know, in the HoJo baseball realm of it, you know, coaching, right? And, you know, I think, you know, we have as people longing to want to be around good people that care, you know, just as much, like as a parent perspective, care as much about your son, you know, as they do. And I think when you display that, you know, through your coaching, you know, doesn't mean you're not going to get on them about some things or, you know, yell at them or make them do a punishment run or something of that nature. But, you know, that you're there because you care for their kid, you know, to get better. You know, it's not too about like, oh, I've got to get my kid to this certain level, you know, and if it's not at that level, then it's a bust. You know, that's kind of looking through the wrong lens. That's a narrow lens. Is your kid enjoying themselves? The environment that he's in, is he getting better? Is he improving? Is he, you know, so that's kind of the, you know, the piece of it. And so that's my advice is, you know, being careful and cautious with the team that you assemble. Because if you have a good one and, you know, they have that server's mindset, you know, that, you know, a lot of people tend to gravitate to that because people can tell that they care, that, you know, that you care, and they want to invest in that. You know, they want to see that through. They want to, you know, be a part of that, you know, because they can see that the heart behind it is genuine. It's authentic.
Yeah, that's good, man. That's good. I kind of want to highlight, and I should have mentioned this earlier. I do such a bad job. It's like I'm a rookie with this podcast. But anybody who's still listening, they can track down the facility website at ShowtimeSportsAcademy.com. And I'm over on the image gallery, and I'm checking the place out. It's I think you've referenced this a little bit, but it's super obvious now that I'm looking at these photos. You guys are a whole multi-sport facility. It looks like there's a sort of like a soccer field set up. I saw somewhere there, if you click over on the birthday party section, like you mentioned, hey, we're about having fun over here. You're talking about, hey, they can play football and soccer and dodgeball and kickball and baseball or softball. You guys are doing a little bit of everything, aren't you?
Yeah, we do. You know, again, like we kind of have our, you know, the servant part of us, you know, that just, we like kind of being that central hub where, you know, you can do a lot of things there. You know, you bring your family, you bring your kids, and you enjoy yourselves. You have a lot of fun, whether it be through a sports themed birthday party, you know, or even if you just kind of want to go in and get some cage time in, you know, and hit some baseballs or softballs, cool. Or if you've got a soccer team, you know, and you want to kind of rent out our field. Shoot, we even had just kind of like, you know, a group of like neighborhood dads just kind of grab some of, you know, the neighborhood kids around, you know, that they're friends with, and like, hey, you know, let's go over to Showtime and, you know, I don't know, throw the football around, or, you know,
sweet. Yeah,
you know, play some baseball or kick the soccer ball around, just anything like that. You know, we have open arms to all that stuff, you know, so
that's cool.
We enjoy it, you know, because the kids and the parents, they, you know, our clients, they enjoy it. So it is.
So in my world, I'm dealing with the high school age baseball player going through the recruiting process. It is very common for me and the people I'm communicating with on a daily basis to get tunnel vision on that small little sliver of the world. And like, I have to remind myself, like, oh, well, there's way more like younger players than there are older players. And then you zoom out a little more and you go, wait, there's way more than just baseball, right? Like, there's all sorts of different ways for young kids and older kids to move their bodies and to have fun. Oh, here's one. Here's one. You can steal this from me, okay? I was on somebody's website the other day. I have no idea whose website it was. And they had a open field, like y'all soccer field. It's the only, I mean, literally, I've been in hundreds of facilities. I've been on thousands of facility websites. This is a one-of-a-kind idea that I've already shared it with some of my best friends who run facilities. You should steal this. A Nerf war. Nerf war. Holy smokes. I'm going to do it with my kid. I've got an 8-year-old. I'm going to go over to my local facility. I've already talked to them. They've got an enclosed open field. And I'm like, I'm just going to call our 7 buddies and their parents. I'm going to bring a cooler and a grill. We're going to hang out. Because Nerf war is hard to do outside. I don't know if because you got a little girl. I don't know if you have we've got, 17 Nerf guns in the house and about 16 million Nerf bullets. If you go outside, you lose them. So having an enclosed field setup, you can go wild. All you got to do is you might want to put some glasses, like those those $3 glasses you would wear when you're doing yard work. Throw those on. Go nuts. And anyway, man.
That's funny. We're in the process of planning our summer camp schedule out. We've got a couple of them out already. We have talked about the Nerf wars because we've understood it's kind of been a growing thing these last couple of years, and it's
so fun.
It's something
so fun.
It's basically like paintball, except with Nerf guns. And so obviously,
except doesn't hurt like
because it doesn't hurt. Yeah.
the one and only time I went paintballing, I mean, I think I still have whelps on it. It hurt. And I'll never forget, my father-in-law broke the only two. There's 2 rules: no shooting around blind corners, and no point blank. He point blank shot me around a blind corner, and I thought it broke my hand. Like, it hurt. It hurt really bad. Last question that sometimes opens up lots of rabbit holes to go down. So we'll see. Sure. We'll see where this takes us. What is one change? What one change could be made to travel baseball that would have the biggest positive impact?
I would say this is something that we kind of pride ourselves on from a HoJo baseball program, and not to say like we have everything figured out. Yeah, we definitely don't. We're constantly learning and trying to evolve. But I would say practice. I think sometimes, there are programs out there, teams that kind of get carried away where you've got to play nothing but games, game, tournament. And that does have a very important role, a significant role. But it did not outweigh, though, the importance of practicing, because you can't sometimes expect things to show up in a game if you haven't at least had the practice and the repetition prior to that. Yeah. So, we, as a program, with our teams, we'll try to practice at least a couple times, a week. Sometimes if we have a tournament upcoming, we'll add an extra one in there. And that's just like team base. And then like we have avenues where our players can, practice on their own as well individually. So it's, practice is the biggest thing, in my opinion. That, because at the end of the day, the only players that remain, right? So you got basically from young age group of baseball, youth baseball, through high school, through college, and then you start diving into pro ball. You got minor league and major league. All that is a filtration system, right?
Mm-hmm.
So where then in the Major League Baseball, you got the best of the best that remain. And obviously, if you get there, then the matter of staying there is a whole other thing too. But all these guys, like they have put in the work. They have taken the time to develop, right? And so the development side of things sometimes gets overlooked, when we just play in a tournament or in a game, because you don't actually get a chance to reflect on some of the good or the bad that you do from a game, or a repetition or drills to try and improve, whether it be, your throwing motion, your swing, just knowledge of where to go with the baseball, right? So that's kind of why you'll see sometimes some silly mistakes, that occur. Is just, there's still development that is to be had there. And so that's in my opinion, we, and in HoJo's too, just us as a program, that we feel like practice is a key ingredient. You're not going to be competitive. You can extract all the best players in the world, but you're still leaving something on the table there if you don't put in the time and the effort to practice and work and develop these boys. So.
Well, it's such an interesting game because it's, on the one hand, it's such an individual battle, right? It's me as an individual hitting against the pitcher. It's me as a shortstop against this ground ball. It's so one-on-one, but simultaneously a team effort.
Yeah.
And if you head down to whatever big tournament, I know you guys got that big one in Nashville. What do they call that? The Music City that's so big? Is that the one?
Music City Classic. Yep.
You go to that event or go to Atlanta. It doesn't matter. Go to one of the big events. Sit on one field and just watch. And what you don't even have to know the coaches or know any of the players. You can figure out pretty quickly which one of those teams are just the sort of run of the mill showcase team that just show and go, right? They fly in from all different parts and show and go, versus that team like you're describing that's probably more local, which allows you to do the practices, and it's going to show up probably over and over and over again, right? It's going to show up in the small ball. Can you bunt the guy over, or rather, can you defend the bunt?
Yes.
There's going to be a ball in the gap. Are we gonna cut this ball off correctly, right? Are guys going to be set up where they need to be and get the ball to where it's going, right? So those little things, and it's amazing. Like, those things show up over and over and over again. The only time they don't show up is when you have a power arm who's just dominating.
Who's just mowing people down. Yep,
just mowing people down, and guys are just heading back to the dugout with their tail between their legs. But if let me tell you, if Bat's getting on the ball, then all these things that you just described are showing up. Yeah. So the practice stuff. I think you're right, man. Look at the college. I don't know what the exact stat is, but they're practicing probably somewhere on the magnitude of 2 or 3 or 4 times as many practices as number of games played, like over the course of a year. All right. So it's like, maybe a little different possibly at the big league level, but most of us are going to the big leagues. It's probably,
but they practice every day even too, that's the big league level. Like they get their work in, before the game. So it's like, obviously the ratio is different. They go through their spring training, but they're professionals, they've been doing it a long time, but they still work, they still work during the day and kind of are in constant communication with each other, so that's what's important. That's what builds kind of those winning programs and organizations. And
to like at the peel the another layer back on the same idea is like, all of a sudden, let's say you have two equally skilled teams. You know what? The camaraderie, the communication, the literal teamwork all of a sudden becomes a separator. right?
Yep.
Because it's sometimes not about this level of skill. It's about those other things. It's about the shortstop and the second baseman communicating. It's about how sometimes it's that nonverbal communication too, and it's like it's so beautiful to watch. And those things don't happen with show and go. Those things happen with hours of playing with each other, hours of practicing with each other. It's such a great thing to highlight here at the end of this call. Glenn, I appreciate you spending some time with me today. This will head up online in a few weeks. I'll make sure I get it. It's going to be over on playinschool.com/Johnson. I'll share all the links to Showtime Sports Academy, that Twitter page, the HoJo Baseball Twitter page, and everything else. Do you have any parting words to, it's probably going to be your dad listening, it's probably my mom listening, and maybe a couple others who are still hanging in there. Any parting words to anybody, those last few people still hanging with us?
Just, to keep, if you want to be successful, like in this side, in this business, like you got to make sure you have a passion for it. And then there's going to be times, where it can be difficult, but if you have kind of that servant mindhood and everything, that servanthood, just, really, it highlights that you're doing something for just a higher reason. And also just having a good team alongside you. I mean, again, at Showtime, we have a great one. My father and I we're extremely blessed with everybody that's involved, whether it be our instructors, whether it be our directors of our travel ball program, people at the front desk, everybody that's involved. We really appreciate just kind of the work that they do, and we wouldn't be able to accomplish what we do without them. So just shout out to them. There's so many of them to name them all by name, but just want to give a shout out to just our team in general, as we're blessed to have them be a part of what we're doing. And it's been fun up to this point, and just we're excited to keep going and seeing how far everything takes us. But thank you, Rich, too, for having me on, and just kind of getting a little bit of an idea of just kind of how we do things down there at Showtime and HoJo Baseball. And, just again, I want to thank God even for the opportunity to, for what we're able to do in the first place. So appreciate everything.
Good deal. We'll end it there. I'll look forward to keeping in touch with you, man. I'll shoot you a text here in a little bit. I appreciate you.
Sounds good, Rich. Thank you, man. Take care.
See you.